Good afternoon. I'm Paul Orfanedes, the Director of Litigation for Judicial Watch. With me today is Neil Parrott, Delegate Parrott, and Pat McDonough, Delegate McDonough. We are here to announce today that we have MDPetitions.com has been allowed to intervene in the lawsuit challenging the petition process for Senate Bill 167, sometimes referred to as the Maryland Dream Act. A couple weeks ago, we filed a motion with the court asking for permission to intervene to defend the petition signers and defend MDPetition.com's process. And the court has just recently granted that motion. In addition, we have identified approximately 1,600 signatures that we believe were improperly excluded that should have been included in the total. The State Board of Elections accepted 108,000 of the 132,000 petition signatures that MDPetitions.com submitted in order to put SB 167 to referendum in November 2012. That exceeded by far the 55,000 total signatures that are necessary to send the new statute to referendum. So we think we're in pretty good shape. Petitioners are challenging approximately 43,000 signatures, in addition to a couple procedural issues about the petition process. But we are confident that we're going to be able to overcome those challenges in court, and so we look forward to the ability to demonstrate why those challenges to signatures are not appropriate and why some additional signatures should have been included. And with that, I will turn things over to Neil Parrott and Pat McDonough.
Great. Thank you, Paul. We're going to open it up to questions when we're done. But I'm Neil Parrott, chairman of MDPetitions.com, and very, very pleased that we have Judicial Watch representing all 130,000 signatures from people all across the state of Maryland who simply want their signatures counted. They don't want to be disenfranchised in any way. Here we have passage in Maryland. We have 2 illegal aliens and a few other people on the lawsuit that are challenging legitimate signatures. And our goal, and we're very pleased to be a party to the case, is to defend each and every one of those signatures to make sure that this goes before the people of Maryland so we have a chance to vote in November of 2012 on whether or not Maryland is going to give in-state college tuition benefits or subsidies to illegal aliens. And with that, I want to turn it over to honorary sharing, Delegate Pat McDonough.
Hi. First of all, thank you all for coming. And what Neil was saying, which I think is very fascinating about this particular case, is that here we have illegal aliens suing American citizens in order to prevent them from voting, which is certainly an alien concept to me. I want to personally thank Judicial Watch, a national legal foundation, greatly respected all around the country, because they bring to this endeavor a tremendous amount of experience in this field and in this area. I'm not going to cite a figure, but I can tell you the equivalent of having Judicial Watch join us to protect the citizens of Maryland and the people's petition is worth a lot of money. If we were to try to hire a legal firm to do the work that they are capable of doing, it would be a significant amount. I want to personally thank Tom Fitton and Paul Orfanedes, who I've worked with before, and we're still working with on some other very interesting projects for intervening. We've asked them to do it, and they've done it, and they've done a lot of work on this project already. And the Attorney General, of course, is going to defend the people's petition, and we have gotten, I believe that Paul can address this better than I can, good cooperation from the Attorney General's office, and they've worked well together. So I think that people of Maryland can, at this point in time, because of Judicial Watch's involvement, feel a great deal more confident and more rested that that petition drive, their people's petition, the most successful petition drive in the history of the state of Maryland, 132,000 signatures within 60 days, that their passion and outrage can now be protected in the court of law. So thank you all for coming. I guess we'll open up for questions folks may have.
Paul, is it?
Yes.
And spell your last name for me.
Orfanedes.
Orfanedes. How did Judicial Watch get involved with this to begin with?
We've been active in Maryland, bringing a lawsuit on behalf of taxpayers in Montgomery County to a similar policy that Montgomery College enacted on its own. We're challenging that on the basis of that it's not consistent with federal law and that it's not consistent with Maryland law, and that's sort of a similar issue. So, because of I think our involvement in that case, we were interested in participating in the MDPetitions.com matter as well.
Casa de Maryland's challenge to the petition is based strictly on the fact that this was done online. Is that correct?
They're bringing a number of number of claims to the petition process. One of the things they say is that this particular legislation is not referable to referendum because they say it affects an appropriation. We obviously disagree with that completely. This is not an appropriations bill. It's nothing like an appropriations bill. It has nothing to do with raising or spending funds. It's an eligibility issue, and it's a benefit. So we disagree with that. They are challenging approximately 28,000 signatures on the basis that they were the petition signers, the citizens who signed these petitions, used an internet-based computer-generated tool to help them fill out their petitions properly. Now, there's nothing in Maryland law that says that is not proper. So there's sort of new territory that they're trying to embark on with this legal challenge. They've also brought a couple other different sort of conceptual challenges to different aspects of the signatures. They're claiming that some people did not fill out their names properly. They're claiming that in some circumstances a text of the statute was not attached to the back of the petition page that they signed. They're making some novel arguments that if the circulator of the petition had a wrong date on the form, then all the forms, all the signatures that circulator signed off on should be thrown out, which is also sort of novel and really extraordinary. But those are the different categories of legal challenges.
Sounds like a shotgun approach then. They're like trying to see what's going to stick.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And in fact, last week we exchanged identification and numbers of what signatures we're taking, each side is taking issue with, and they only identified approximately 44,000 signatures that they're challenging. That wouldn't be enough to get them below the 55,000 threshold that they need to get in order to prevail. So it'd be interesting to see what else they can come up with.
And Pat or Neil, you can address the appropriations issue and why you don't believe that it was an appropriations bill.
Well, I think the State Department of Finance has indicated it is not an appropriations bill. And we have that in writing from them. It did not go in front of the Appropriations Committee or the Finance Committee. It went in front of the Policy Committee because it was a policy change in Maryland's system of higher education. So there aren't any indications that would lead anyone to believe during the process of the General Assembly or the reaction to the finance agencies that it's involved as an appropriation. I mean, that's what I understand at this point. And I think you covered the General Assembly, and you know that all of the hearings were in the policy committees. They were not in appropriations.
So I guess my question would be, if the court then does find that it is an appropriation, what does that do to the whole system by which this thing became a law to begin with? It didn't go through the proper channels then, right? Or what happens then?
That raises a host of other interesting issues that we'd have to look at. Yeah.
The court would then have to be incarcerated and tested for insanity.
Can I answer that?
It's an extreme position.
Just briefly, there was a court case in Ohio that was very recent where the Republicans, they did redistricting in Ohio, and they attached an appropriations part to the redistricting bill. And it went before the courts. Their hope was, hey, it's an appropriations bill. You can't do the referendum on that bill. And the court said, no, that's not the case. This is clearly a redistricting bill, and you attached a little appropriation. So even in the future, if the Maryland delegation would decide to attach an appropriations bill to a bill like this, where it's really a policy change, then that wouldn't stand up in court according to what just happened in Ohio. And of course, we're very confident at MDPetitions.com that we are going to win this case all the way through, and the people of Maryland will get that opportunity in November of 2012 to vote on whether we're going to give in-state college tuition benefits to illegal aliens or not. We're very, very pleased with the representation from Judicial Watch. But one of the reasons we're so confident is because Marylanders all across the state, from the Eastern Shore, Western Maryland, Southern Maryland, in the city of Baltimore, and in the D.C. suburbs, everywhere, people went out and gathered signatures. We have over 130,000 that were turned in, and it's that number that's so high that makes it so difficult for Casa de Maryland to overturn the signatures that were turned in, and to overturn the will of the people.
Any idea on the time frame as to when the court might rule, or is there any kind of time frame in which it has to work in order to determine what goes on the ballot?
Yes.
Yeah, the court has set a briefing schedule, which would require dispositive motions, summary judgment motions to be decided, to be briefed and filed with the court by early January. And then the court has set a hearing date for January 27th, I believe, to have oral argument on the motions. I would expect it to rule after, shortly thereafter. The court was somewhat concerned to be sure that the Court of Appeals has the opportunity to consider any appeals in sufficient time before the November election.
Any other questions?
So you currently have 130,000 signatures, that's right?
132,000 were submitted to the State Board of Elections.
Submitted. And CASA is challenging about 48,000?
Well, the State Board, it verified 108,000, so it's at approximately 16,000 were not sufficient for a variety of different reasons. And Casa de Maryland is challenging about another 44,000.
Paul, can you tell about the ones that we think are valid?
Oh, sure. And then there's another about 1,600 that we think were improperly excluded. But, the law is there's a variety of reasons as to when or how a signature can be accepted or rejected. And some of them involve judgment calls. There are some that we say should not have been excluded. Sometimes it's as minor as how a person went about filling out their name on a petition form, if they use Mike as opposed to Michael, or if they use two initials rather than one full name, that sort of thing. So those are things that we're taking issue with. Some of those. Likewise, Casa de Maryland is taking issue with some that were included. They say should have been excluded. But the numbers really aren't there for them because they've got about 60,000 they need to knock out. So far, they're not anywhere close to that.
So just as a point of clarification, Casa de Maryland is suing the State Board of Elections.
Yes, that's right.
Right, and you are entering as a friend of the court?
Intervening. We're a party now. I guess we're intervening on the side of the defendants. We aren't technically classified as a defendant, but we're obviously supporting or arguing against Casa de Maryland's efforts.
So that's in conjunction. So that's the AG's office then that is actually pleading the case on behalf of the Board of Elections.
Who's the attorney?
Matt Fader on behalf of the
Matt
Attorney General,
Fader.
FADER, and he's the lead counsel for the Attorney General's office.
He's their principal litigator. And also want to mention that the courts in their most recent rulings in Maryland in reference to accuracy, the accuracy issue on names, have very much liberalized their opinion. As I know you all recall, prior to about a year ago, they had really narrowly defined what was acceptable in terms of a name having to be almost perfect. And now their last ruling was much more liberalized, and we think that philosophy is prevailing in the court, which would be helpful to some of these challenges.
Well, and just to add to that, it's reasonable. What the court did in the
Microphone,
spring...
please. Neil, Mike.
Thank you. Just to add to that, what the court did in the spring, they took a more reasonable approach. The folks who signed the petition, they want to have their signatures counted. That's why they signed. And whether the name is Mike or Michael or however they registered, their intent is clear. And that's what the judicial system did in the spring. Is they said, well, their intent was clear. They do have enough information that we can clearly identify this person as the one who signed, and their name should be counted. And so that's very favorable for the people of Maryland and the whole referendum effort, and this one and other ones as well. But that was trying to get two parties. That case was the Libertarian Party, I believe, and the Green Party, to try and be able to be on the ballot in the future.
And how much money have you raised in this endeavor?
What's that?
To challenge the DREAM Act, have you done fundraising? How much money have you raised? What does that look like?
Well, to get the actual signatures, MDPetitions.com did raise some money, mostly to pay for the website. That was under $15,000. Probably at this time, we haven't done any major fundraising to try and actually bring. Basically, we're concentrating on the legal case right now. Of course, after the legal case is won, then we're going to need to do fundraising so that we can send the message clearly to the Maryland voters what SB 167 would do, which would give in-state college tuition benefits to illegal aliens, which most voters, from a survey that was done recently, are opposed to.
I want to mention on that particular point, some clarification. Under current, I'm not even sure if it's state law, it's a rule by the election board, but Neil is the principal agent for MDPetitions.com, and that is like a silo organization on the collection of signatures, which we have been through that process. We're now in the judicial process. As far as the campaign process is concerned, any organization, any PAC, any individual, any group can either personally or can go to the election board and offer fundraising and financial support to our side. It does not have to all come through MDPetitions.com. That's a different part of the law. So if an individual says, I think this is a wonderful thing and they want to contribute $500,000 to the effort, they can do it. However, it is clear to us that the other side, when we get to the campaign phase, a great deal of money is coming into this state from outside sources, possibly from all over the country. It's going to be a hard-hitting, hard-pounding, well-financed campaign against the people of Maryland. And the SIEU will be involved, Casa de Maryland will be involved, a number of other organizations will be involved. And it will be a very tough and tumble campaign this summer going into the fall. My personal prediction is the more dirt they throw, the lesser their chances are of winning. I think we're going to prevail and we're going to win at the ballot with 60% of the vote. Because as Neil pointed out, if you look at the returns as to where these people signed this petition, it was Ocean City, it was West Baltimore, it was Dundalk, it was Western Maryland. 50% of the signatures were non-Republicans. They were independent and they were Democrats. And as we got to the tail end of the campaign, that number was higher. In other words, all the Republicans signed on in the beginning. But as people became aware, more and more Democrats and independents and other than Republicans were signing that petition. And that was very interesting. If we go in another month, it would have probably been 60 to 65% non-Republicans on the signatures. So the campaign's a totally different phase. This is all about the great asset and assistance the Judicial Watch is providing, and that's where we are at this time.
So does this whole judicial process then hold up your fundraising efforts, do you think? People are waiting to see what the court decides before they pony up?
It doesn't need to. I don't think anyone's waiting. Just for our priorities right now, we're concentrating on the judicial part and to make sure that we win. And we're very thankful for Judicial Watch coming alongside us to defend basically 109,000 signatures of Marylanders all across the state who want to have their signatures counted. Over 132 wanted to have their signatures counted. 109,000 were validated. And so that's our goal, is to make sure that every single one of those signatures are validated and counted, and that this does go before the voters in November of 2012. Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming.